Family Tree Nuts, we make professional, historic videos all over the country and currently have videos in 25 states and even a few international. Let's face it, nobody wants to read anymore. As a matter of fact, nobody wants to even watch long videos, which is why I'm going to keep this real quick. Moving into the future, how are we going to educate the public on all the historic treasures that are found in every community? We have found the answer. Short, entertaining, and to-the-point videos with lots of shots and views that are relevant to the subject. These videos are shared on social media and are the fastest and least expensive way to educate the community on the history of your area. We have experience working with historical organizations as well as city or county tourism departments and Chamber of Commerce's to produce these videos for their use. Our clients are provided with copies of any video produced as well as online links to the videos that they can easily add to their websites. Let us document and produce videos of just a few or all the historic sites in your area. You will find our rates extremely affordable and well below the industry standard for media production. We are passionate about preserving and documenting as many historical sites as we can, and we would love to work with you. For more information, contact me directly at russ@familytreenuts.org or my personal phone at 859-314-1976. And remember, Family Tree Nuts, let our nuts find the nuts in your family tree. Welcome to History Nuts. I'm Russ Carson Jr., the founder of Family Tree Nuts. At Family Tree Nuts, we build family trees for people and we produce videos at historic locations and videos that help to honor your ancestors.
I'm Jameson Cable, founder of the Kentucky History Podcast, where we talk about anything Kentucky history, events, people. If it has to do with Kentucky, we're going to discuss it.
And we've teamed up together to bring you History Nuts.
History Nuts is a live show where we talk about, you guessed it, history.
Right. History seems to be less and less to people today, but we are trying to do everything we can to keep it alive.
Absolutely. History is a passion of ours for sure, but it connects to you. Russ, tell us about the best part of the show.
You can join in. You can comment and ask questions live.
We've got a great topic today, and we know you're going to enjoy this episode of
History Nuts. And we're live. We are live. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, right?
But we're not talking about Muhammad Ali.
Wait,
Woo!
you said Cassius Clay.
Yeah. There's another Cassius Clay, man. Another Cassius Clay.
Are you serious?
Man, I hope you got your right notes with you. But
oh my God, you got the wrong ones there. But no, just kidding. But when you say the name Cassius Clay, that's the very first thing that people think about, though, isn't it?
Exactly. But we're talking about a different one. One probably most people probably don't know about, again, but that's why you tune in to watch, right?
That's right. The original, the OG, right? The OG, the OGCC, right? I can't believe I just said that, man.
It's what the kids are saying these days, I think.
Yeah, right. So there's Blaine. He says he's watching from Bourbon County. Kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah, man.
And we got Chris from Camarillo, California. So
yeah,
cool. Across the country. But anyway, so yeah,
well,
chime
Brian
in and
says love the channel. Which one does he love? Does he love Family Tree Nuts?
Both.
Like a history
Both,
podcast? Both. But yeah, so we got a great show tonight about a really cool guy, But make sure you guys let us know. We want you to chime in. That's the best part about this show. Is a lot of times people comment in the beginning, but then they don't comment later on. So make sure you chime in, because this is a unique character. And if we go long, we'll turn this into 2 episodes because there's a lot to talk about old Cassius Clay.
Yes, a whole lot. But yeah, comment where you're from. Let us know. Subscribe and like the channels if you haven't already.
Subscribe. Both of us are right there at some benchmark areas there.
Yeah.
Look, Donna
Clark Kirby says her grandfather, William Barlow Clark, worked for Mr. Clay. Grandfather went and got the preacher when Mr. Clay married Dora. Oh, that's a good story right there. And Dora, the story about Dora Richardson is one of my favorite history stories of all. But
and hey, Monica's watching too. Hey, Monica, love some Cassius Clay in Whitehall. So,
awesome.
Got any extra info? Let us know, because there's a lot to talk about. Like you said, I mean, this is two episodes easy, really.
Yeah, we go quick, but I see Scott's watching in Tennessee. We miss you, Scott, man. Hope everything's going well for you, buddy, and hope he's getting close to retirement. I think he might be retiring right now, so but it's real close to it. But the Lion of Whitehall, what a cool name, man! You know, we've got a lot of history people, and this guy's name is the Lion of Whitehall.
Yes,
and man, what a great. I think that's a great name for him, because
if you're going to be called Lion, you've got to earn it, and I do think he's earned it.
He earns it, man. You know, so Scott says he's retired and he's in Boston.
Woo!
Oh, man, that sounds
congratulations!
Congratulations, Scott. It's time to get you one of these. But we got you kind of thing. You know, the thing about this, as we get into the stories about Cassius Clay, we're going to tell some stories that if you don't know about this guy, it's going to blow your daggone mind. For somebody to be in such a high-profile position, to be somebody that most people would have known in the United States, even back then, and the kind of stuff that the guy's involved with and did, it'll just blow your mind, won't it?
Yeah. You know, I would even say that he was a bit of a radical for his time. I mean,
yes. And he's kind of a man of his times. You know, we're very much wimps compared to the folks of yesteryear, for sure. But they settled things a little bit different back then. But
very much so. So, you ready to get started a little bit? I mean, I guess we already have got started, but he was a farmer, a politician, emancipationist. Founder of the Kentucky Republican Party, and he published a newspaper. So, man of many hats.
Absolutely, you know, a big friend of Lincoln and things. Cam says hello from Madco. So yeah, man, absolutely.
So I'll ask you the question: his last name's Clay. What's his connection to old Henry?
Everybody's curious about that. You know, I mean, these very famous people, Clay. You know, Cassius Clay, Henry Clay, was that his dad? Was it his uncle, his brother? Who are they? Actually, they were second cousins.
So that would be...
they shared a great-grandfather. And what's interesting about that is that Cassius and Henry Clay were 33 years apart, but their great-grandfather that they shared was born in the late 1600s.
Wow.
Before they have a common ancestor, there, you know, Cassius and Henry's fathers were first cousins, and their grandfathers were brothers. That's how that works. So, you know, some old money.
Oh yeah, and interesting because the great grandfather that would be their common ancestor as well. He was named Henry Clay. And I believe, and it's been a while since I read this book, there's a book about the Clays, and it's just like a genealogy book. And he would have been the first one to come to America, I believe.
Okay.
I believe. It's been a while, and I have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure their great-grandfather was the one who came first.
Named Henry Clay.
Yeah, and his name was Henry Clay as well. And I think he spelled it Claye, maybe, the Clay. But I'll double check that. But just an interesting note.
Yeah, it is interesting, you know, that their common ancestor is born 142 years before him. So, but they were tied into the Clays and big friends of that. Now, Henry Clay was a Whig. See, that's what a lot of people so many people can't grasp the concept of the dates, especially in the early 1800s. These men were 33 years apart. You know, Henry was well old enough to be his father, kind of thing. But they're totally different generations, but yet in the same time period too. So
yeah.
but,
they do kind of overlap each other, I guess, and like when they were alive, but not necessarily, they're just different. It's one of those things. I mean, they're just their common ancestor, like you said, is just a bit spread apart. That's all. So.
Yeah, Nana 53 says her ancestor Judith Clay was also a cousin, and Michael, of course, he says he married his fourth cousin, Mary Jane Warfield. So remember, Michael, he hadn't seen Michael in a few weeks, but he's related to everybody. So he's got the coolest family tree in history. So yeah, man.
So he's born 1812.
10.
1810. Sorry, I was thinking War of 1812, but yeah, 1810. To Green Clay, another interesting fact: Green Clay is actually who Clay County, Kentucky, is named after, not Henry,
and not Cassius, but
Green. Not Cassius, Green Clay. So yeah,
Green. Clay.
Yeah, not red clay or brown clay.
I've never thought about that. I literally haven't, but just now. I hasn't even registered in my mind. I know his mother was a Green, and that's why he was named Green. But
that is an odd name. I mean, really, to name your kid a color. I mean, it makes sense with your.
Well, who was Green Clay?
Well, so he served in the Continental Army in the Revolutionary War. He was a successful surveyor. In Kentucky.
Very successful.
He built distilleries. He actually built Clay's Ferry.
Yeah.
I'm going down Clay's Ferry 100 times a year. Maybe not that much, but a lot, But there it is, man.
Yeah, exit 97 and exit 99 there on I-75 right there. It's a Kentucky River.
Well, Clay's Ferry Bridge, I guess. I should say Clay's Ferry Bridge is what we drive on now. But
right, yeah. Yeah, but see, it was such a strategic spot because that was the way from Richmond to Lexington, or anywhere further south in southern Kentucky to Lexington. So great piece of real estate that he had there.
Yep. He also was a delegate in the Virginia House. He served both in the Kentucky House and the Kentucky Senate. He held Fort. Is it Meigs?
Yeah, Fort Meigs. Yeah, Fort Meigs.
And he also
during the War of 1812.
In the War of 1812, and also fought against Tecumseh. So had a pretty successful political career and a pretty successful military career as well.
Right. General. He was a general there, and very successful businessman. And what I find quite interesting.
Yeah.
What else? What else did he?
He owned tons of property and slaves, and he was one of the wealthiest men in Kentucky.
Yeah, I think at one time he was the wealthiest man in Kentucky.
So you know what? That'll get a county named after you.
All off of slavery, kind of thing. I mean, I'm not saying because of slavery is the reason why he had all that money and stuff, but he had tremendous wealth, and he was a very large slave owner. And that's a big deal because his son is known for being one of the biggest emancipationists in history.
Yes. He was definitely against emancipation. We'll get to all that as well.
Yeah, they built their house Whitehall there in 1798, even before Cassius was even born. And if you haven't been there, it is something to see. Now, when Cassius lived there, many years later, in the 1860s, they did some renovations and things and made the house about twice as big. But the main house even is phenomenal to think about in 1798. So tremendous wealth.
Quite impressive.
Yeah, big time. Big time.
Old Cassius, he goes to Transy. We talked about Transy a few weeks ago. So
with the Transy,
Transy grad. But then he goes
Transylvania University.
Transylvania University.
Transy. What are you talking about?
Not everybody's familiar with the Kentucky colleges,
right?
Because somebody watching from California, so I guess that we want to clarify. So he attends a Transy, and then he goes to Yale in 1832. So still two quite prestigious university, especially, Transylvania was pretty prestigious at the time. Yale always has been prestigious. But this is what got him. While I was at Yale, he heard an abolitionist speak, and he joined the movement. And from that on, he became the voice of abolitionists in Kentucky for sure, along with the nation. So
he was converted at that point. I mean, here's a guy that his whole opportunities, his whole well-being, is because, not because of, but it involves slavery. He obviously saw it on a daily basis from his infancy. He's got all these opportunities. He's living in basically an aristocratic life. And then he comes back and says, hey, this is for the birds, man. We got to do away with this. And that's what's radical about it, is a lot of times people think one way when they didn't live in that world, but he lived in that world. So to me, that's the biggest thing that's interesting about Cassius Clay, is where he came from, and then basically totally turned away.
Yeah, he did a complete 180. And, I mean, it turned out fine for him, but, in some scenarios, you do that and, like, it's completely life-changing. Like, you lose everything. But in his situation, a bit of a different story. But now he was, too, one of his things was for gradual emancipation. He didn't want to just completely, I guess, end it, But
definitely. I see Whitlock Cemetery Tours guy says, hey, what's going on, man? He said, finally catching one of these shows live, but he loves the show. That's another channel, guys. Go to Whitlock Cemetery Tours on YouTube. The guy's doing awesome stuff there. A lot of really cool new videos that he's been putting out there too. So if you like history, make sure you check his out too. But you mentioned something there, in that we're a little bit ahead of ourselves, but we'll go ahead and bring that up now. You said what type of emancipation was he for?
Gradual. They didn't want to just end it all at once.
And that's a neat thought, because many people believe that the Civil War did not need to happen, that slavery was going to take care of itself eventually. It was getting outdated. It was becoming, with machinery and things like that, that there wasn't going to be a need for slavery another maybe generation or so. And if we'd have just held out a little bit longer, we wouldn't have had to have all that loss of life.
But old South Carolina.
Well, be careful. So,
unless you're watching from South Carolina.
I try to walk that line, because I can see both sides of that argument there. So, So
let's get into one of his wild stories.
Oh, man.
Go ahead.
Well, the first time that he almost had a duel. Now, this is a common theme with him. If you study Cassius Clay, you're going to learn about his dealings with the True American, his abolitionist movements, and all that kind of stuff later in life. But as a young man, the guy's life kind of patterns an Andrew Jackson type guy, But so you want to tell the story, or me?
Oh, I thought you were going to.
I can.
Well, go ahead. You were leading in so well. I was like, all right, here we go.
So he's engaged, to be married, and this other guy writes a letter to his future mother-in-law and talks about how much of a philanthropist? How much of a kind of a rowdy guy that Cassius Clay is, and that you really shouldn't let your daughter marry this cat,
Yeah, which, I mean, you wouldn't do that these days. So, I mean, that's a pretty bold statement, right?
Right, wrote it out in a letter, kind of thing. Today we might just send a text or something. Hey, I tell you, I saw him talking to Sally over there the other day. So, but Cassius Clay confronts him. He goes all the way to Louisville.
And this guy's name's Dr. DeClary, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
And he has a medical doctor there. And they say he probably wanted to marry that lady. He had an interest in marrying her also. But philanderer, there you go. I got it. So it's not me. I've been married for 25 years. So, don't even know how to spell that word. So, but he meets him on the street and says, hey, bud, did you write that letter about me? And he says, yeah, I did. And So let's have a little talk about this over on the side street over here. Well, the doctor starts to use his voice very loudly, so it can draw attention, around there so people can gather around. Now, Cassius brought his buddy, who eventually becomes General Gilmore, with him. And, as his backup in case anything were to go crazy, Gilmore jumps in there and tries to, act like he's trying to keep the two apart. Guys, don't fight, don't fight, don't fight. But really what he's doing is pushing the crowd back.
Yeah.
Cassius Clay takes his cane and beats the fire out of him, beats the fire out of Gilmore in the middle of the street. And so it gave him a caning that you've never seen before.
Caning.
Caning, yeah.
Well, I don't know if that was, that wasn't too gentlemanly of him. I don't believe that's against the gentleman's code of honor, or what are they supposed to?
He could have pulled a cane too. I mean, you got to stop it. You got to stop it. But he, of course, the doctor challenges him to a duel.
Well. Let's back up just 1 second, because he would have been like 23, and he's walking around with a cane.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a bit amusing. Yeah. That's a style. But anyway, go ahead.
He had a purple felt hat and things like that. And those finger stripes.
Big mink jacket, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so the doctor challenges him to a duel, and of course, Cassius accepts, and his buddy becomes his second. They get to they choose to go to Indiana. Remember, we talked about this. You go to over state line
and the duel,
extradition and things. And when they get there, there's people all over the place. I mean, there's people everywhere. So they say, let's hold off. Let's go to this other location tomorrow. Like, we can't have all these people around and make a big spectacle. They go there and there's people all over the place again. So they say, let's do it tomorrow. But Cassius can't do it tomorrow because he's got to go home and get married.
Yeah.
He can't miss his wedding. So he says, hey, you're going to have to hold on a second. I got to go home and get married. And he challenges him to say, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back. And he went back to Louisville a few days later and sat there in the hotel lobby, and basically the doctor saw him but just kind of went the other direction and stuff, and kind of weaseled himself out of that. He decided he didn't want to be part of it. So Cassius went home. The other guy now is as yellow as there can be, and it's a different time and place here. And he basically slits his own throat, commits suicide, because of his cowardice of not fighting or not facing Cassius Clay. So quite an interesting story there, isn't it?
Yes. A dark turn at the end there, but yeah, just goes to show you kind of, the time, I guess the ways of the time, how big a deal it was to uphold your word, I guess.
Your honor. Your
honor. So, pretty crazy, pretty wild.
I'm of the thought that I don't know that I would be alive to I don't know if I'd have reached 45. I'd have been ruling everybody, man.
Doing everybody, just walking down the street, draw.
Yeah. So right. So of course, in 1833, did marry Mary Jane Warfield, Michael Bush's fourth cousin. There, he says, and her dad was a pretty well-known physician there in Lexington, and he's one of the biggest names that helped to get thoroughbred horse racing in Kentucky.
Yeah, got to get those horses running. Well, I mean, I guess that's what Old Kentucky is known for. So the thoroughbred industry is still running quite strong here in Kentucky. But they had a lot of kids, 10 kids. Yeah. 2 of which they named Cassius Jr. So
right. And that's not uncommon. I mean, the first one was died in infancy, and we think that'd be weird today,
Yeah.
But
and one of those things, a lot of people back then had wanted their names. That was a way of, I guess, your legacy living on, and people would name themselves after, or their kids after themselves, and so forth. But a bit different. That doesn't happen as much now, obviously. infant deaths, that sort of stuff. But
yeah, not as many. And of course,
yeah.
his son Brutus was a very well-known businessman, Brutus Clay, here in Richmond, Kentucky, and his wife was Patty. And make a very, very long story short, the hospital, well, it's not anymore technically, but for 60 some years or 100 years or so, it was named Patty A. Clay Hospital.
Yeah. Yeah, and I always wondered where that name came from, but that makes perfect sense, man.
Yeah, she was a daughter-in-law of Cassius.
Yeah, well, a lot of people think, of course, of Henry Clay, but especially in Madison County, like how much influence Cassius Clay had in the entire area, and the Clay family in general. Talking about his son as well.
Well, his one daughter's a big women's suffragist. The women's suffragist movement. So it's a whole nother story right there. But we better stay focused.
Yeah, well, this next son though, Henry Lanny.
Yeah,
Lonnie. There you go, Lonnie. Lonnie. He adopted a kid from Russia. Is that right? Is that illegally?
Illegitimate.
Oh, I see now. I see.
He is a product of one of his philanderer, whatever you call that. He was his illegitimate son that he adopted.
Gotcha.
And his wife accepted that. So
yeah.
But,
yeah. But he was a planter, but also abolition, big time on the abolitionist cause. But Mary said Laura Clay. Yeah,
Laura Clay. Yeah, absolutely, was a famous women's suffragist. Mm-hmm. He's a planter, but he's a Southern planter with a lot of acreage, but he was an abolitionist. Mm-hmm. So how in the world are you going to raise these crops without that? He came up with some other ways, mm-hmm. and helped to change the way a lot of people can think. And he made a lot of enemies because of that too.
A lot, but yeah, well, that goes. His political career, he was elected 3 times to the Kentucky House of Reps. He lost his 4th bid or his 4th campaign because of his anti-slavery stance.
You can only rock the boat so much, right?
Do what?
You can only rock the boat so much.
That's right. Yeah, and then people did not. He, like you said, he made a lot of enemies. Pretty big. Pretty successful. We'll get to this in a minute, but he was ambassador to Russia, which we kind of mentioned that as well. But anyway, the next wild story. Are you ready to tell that one?
Yeah, you want to tell it, or you want me?
You go for it. You can be the.
I like this one. This is my favorite, kind of thing. So here we are, 1843, and they're at Russell Cave. You ever heard of Russell Cave?
Yep.
And there's a Russell Cave Road there in Lexington. Russell Cave is not what your traditional hole in the ground cave. It's more of like a big, large overhang that's domed, almost like an amphitheater. And people would go there on the weekends, and they would have plays and things like that. But also, it's where you go to hear political speakers and things there. It's on private property. You can't go visit it there, but it would be a really neat thing to go there. But he's going to a political rally, and his opponent is speaking, and he interrupts him. He says, "Hey, what you're saying was proved wrong," kind of thing. So I could just picture that. Could I kindly interrupt the there?
Excuse me.
It's kind of like the debates you could see. Like Trump wouldn't shut up. When he's like he kept interrupting. Wait, kind of thing. So, but and Biden didn't know where he was at. But anyway, hey, But anyway, he interrupts him, and a man by the name of Samuel Brown, goes over to Cassius Clay and smacks him with his umbrella.
Man. Cane, umbrellas, we're using anything.
Right, which is kind of disrespectful. So say, you can just shut up.
Kind of, a little bit.
So Cassius knew this guy. He knew he was like a bully, like kind of like a hired gun kind of thing. And Go ahead.
He is a very interesting man. I visit Whitehall. They say it is haunted. I didn't
Yeah.
see or feel anything. I have also visited the grave in the Richmond Cemetery.
Yeah, pretty place for sure. Definitely, they definitely say it's haunted. I can talk about that here at the end. But hits him with his umbrella, and then Clay knew that that something was on here. He's going to have to do something right here.
Uh-huh.
A bunch of Sam Brown, the guy with the umbrellas, men were holding him back. Cassius Clay says, "Let me go so I can kill this rascal."
Oh, no. Oh, man, a rascal. Ooh.
So they let him go. They let him go, and the crowd opens up. And about 15 feet apart they are, and he looks at him, and Sam Brown starts to pull his pistol.
Uh-huh.
Clay knows that it's going to have to happen right here. So he turns his left shoulder to Brown and starts to charge him. And while he's doing it, he's starting to draw his Bowie knife. The big Bowie knives of the time. He's pulling it out. Sam gets a shot off and hits Cassius, right?
Yes.
Well, Cassius comes down with his Bowie knife and nails him right in the head. Said it put about a 3-inch dent in his head, on his skull, and kind of stuns him.
Yeah.
Makes him fall over. Well, Cassius's buddies run over and check him, and then luckily, when he pulled his Bowie knife, the scabbard, had some silver around there, and when it pulled the scabbard up, and the bullet hit there, so it did not pierce him. So Cassius just says, "Hey, bro, nothing, no problem here." Gets him up, shakes his hand, right?
No, you don't get the name line by that.
He takes his Bowie knife and splits Sam's nose right down the middle, fillets it, slices his nose open.
Oh.
Then he cuts his daggone ears off, and then he stabs him in the eyeball. What the heck, right? So the scuffle arises a little bit. He fights off the other guys. He takes Sam Brown, picks him up, and throws him over an embankment.
Oh, man.
Wow!
Yes.
Wow, man.
That is brutal.
I mean, imagine this. Could you imagine the Facebook post about this if this happened at a political rally? Kind of today, right?
Yeah. Man, this
is wild. Splits the guy's nose, cuts his ears off, stabs him in the eyeball, throws him over the embankment and things. Well, Cassius Clay is charged with mayhem because basically, the guy he knocked him over the head. You incapacitated him. Did you really have to slice him up?
Yeah.
And of course, he gets charged with mayhem, and his attorney was none other than Henry Clay, who had never lost a case in 30 years or 40 years, he'd never lost a case. And he gets him off, and his defense is he only was performing like a Kentuckian.
Behaving like a Kentuckian. That's how it goes, man. Can't hold it against him.
That is a great I love that line because it is a great snapshot of the times. He's just being a Kentuckian,
Yeah.
So that was a heck of a defense.
What can you do? Yeah.
Sam Brown, he sounds like he, got his butt kicked here, and you feel kind of bad for him. But this guy was kind of a punk and known to be kind of a punk. So this might be a crazy question. Did he die or did he live? I think he lived.
Okay. All right. Well, that's
pretty sure that he lived.
That's impressive to go through that.
He would have been charged with murder, I guess, probably then. But
yeah.
But
That's right. Yeah.
Defense. But you didn't have to go that far, But hey, you
making a point
in your head there. Got a little off in the head.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we got. I think we had a few comments here. Mary says Henry Clay, her favorite. A lot of people I'd say from Kentucky is probably one of their favorites. If you're looking at historical people, Nana, I think, says my husband and I took our sons there in the 80s. We saw 2 women upstairs in period clothes. Oh, I guess they saw ghosts, and a lady downstairs later told us they didn't have anyone working up there. Ooh. Oh. That is interesting. I'm not as aware of the ghost element of Whitehall, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. That's one of their biggest draws, during Halloween time and stuff. So,
yeah. Patty says, I read up on him when I saw this live comment. Very interesting fella. Yeah. Well, that's about. I mean, that last story wasn't enough. I mean,
he's got more.
yeah. So in 1845, he begins publishing the True American, which is an anti-slavery newspaper. He bought 24 pounds of cannons to defend the newspaper's office in Lexington.
Two 4 pounds.
2 pounds. Sorry, 2 4 pounds. Yeah, 20. Yeah. So if you're thinking about that, I mean, he had to knowingly be prepared to defend his publishing or his newspaper. That right there should tell you that it was very, very controversial. That people were going to be coming not happy with it.
Very radical. I mean, a 4 pound cannon's, I can't get into the, about that, about this big right there. A 4 pound shots, kind of about like that right there. And inside the office, inside the newspaper office, that you could see right there.
Yeah.
I mean,
talk about like scaring people away. If you're walking by the window or whatever and you see a cannon sitting there,
two of them. Yeah,
two of them. You might not get too upset about things.
Well, because he's really, really rocking the boat, and it's interesting too, because you talk about he was a founder of the Republican Party, and it was an emancipationist newspaper. It wasn't just about emancipation; it was about news, kind of thing. But it had that angle, and we see that all the way to today of different news stations lean this way or that. Yeah. And that's where people are getting their information from. But if you can control the media, you can control the masses, kind of thing. And that's why this is such a big deal, because he wasn't just out there giving speeches. He was putting these articles out there into circulation that was then getting picked up and going all over the country. So a definite a mouthpiece for what he believed in there. And he didn't just have the 2 cannons. He had something else behind the counter.
Oh, pistol?
Well, we had a keg of gunpowder.
Oh, okay.
He said, if you try to break in here and destroy my place, I'll blow you all to hell. With his opinion, this is a union fella,
Yeah, he is, yeah.
But in reality, a mob did storm. About 60 people stormed inside there. I don't know if he wasn't able to use his cannons on him. Nobody was there or something at the time. They got his printing press and destroyed it. So he ended up having to move his newspaper up to Cincinnati.
Yeah. Yep. And which didn't stop him, but he did have a bit of a hiccup there.
And his cannon went home to his house.
Yeah. But he so during this time too, we're talking about the 1840s. Was it Mexican-American War? Is it 1847?
Yep, 1847, 1848.
Yeah, so he served as a captain in the Mexican-American War with the 1st Kentucky Cavalry. Yeah. So got a little bit of a military, or got his military career in. Carl says, I have a lot of tax records from 1778. Kentucky to bed, can't share.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Right.
So yes, but he had a rival, from back home that was in a sister unit. There was a captain of a sister unit that they had the beef back home in Lexington. Now they're out there fighting. They're in Mexico fighting, and the beef carries on into the army there.
Yes. Yeah. You're gonna talk about the beef?
Sure, you can. I think so.
And are you talking about Tom Marshall? Is that
yes.
What you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah, Tom Marshall.
So they ended up commanding separate units there in the Mexican American War. It is referred to mostly as Mexican American War, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Not just the Mexican War, because that would be a bit confusing. But that's Just clarifying, because I'm sure Mexico has been in more wars than just the Mexican-American War. Yeah. But anyway, so Marshall was a bit of a drinker, and sometimes when you do the boozing, this goes a little longer, and he starts bad mouthing Clay a little bit. But Clay, as Clay would, finally called him out, and
you've been getting by with this from saying you're drunk, but I've had enough of this,
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get this out in the open here, pal.
Let's go get the pistols.
And basically, long story short, Marshall finally does agree to go get the pistols.
Yes, but Marshall wouldn't fire, and later he tried to drown himself in the Rio Grande.
In the Rio Grande River. Okay, so the guy cuts his throat, the back down, and this guy drowned. It's a really good example of the idea of being yellow or being a coward or being a wuss, kind of thing for their time period there. It's a totally different universe than it is today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I was about to say, that, again, people have lined up, I guess, to face off against Cassius Clay. They've backed out and then have attempted or have actually killed themselves, and that actually probably speaks about Cassius as well. I mean, he was a man known to keep his word and to keep his honor or fight for it at least. So
didn't put up any garbage. I know that.
No.
And there was lots of people like this, lots of stories that are like this. His stories get the press
notability,
because of who he was, kind of thing. But there was a whole lot of that, even just the common guys, calling each other out, kind of thing. But it was a rough and tumble time period. We think of the Wild West and stuff. The early 1800s in Kentucky was pretty dapper and rough too.
So after the war, though, he kind of goes back to continuing his emancipation speeches, traveling around the state and so forth. But he actually is giving a speech, and the Turner brothers, 6 of them, roll in and attack him.
Yeah.
6 against 1, right? But old Bowie, old Bowie comes out, man, and he actually kills one of them.
Yeah.
So another wild kind of attempt there, or just a wild scenario. So, man,
fights off 6 of them.
Yeah. I mean, crazy. But on a positive note, about 4 years later, he donates the land for Berea College. And if you remember, it's been a while. I mean, a long time ago, we talked about John G. Fee.
Yeah.
His connection to Berea College, and this was all the big process. Cassius Clay donated the land. John G. Fee then ran the college and so forth. And there was even a point that John G. Fee came, and they were trying to figure out who was going to live in what house or whatever. And and John G. Fee was like, I don't care, being the big nice guy, that he kind of was. And another guy had moved into a house, and that was originally planned for John G. Fee and this and that. And old Cassius Clay had to step in and said, "Hey, listen, that one's for John. You all have to move." But he definitely kept his promises and so forth. But
sure.
Which John G. Fee, another abolitionist, big time abolitionist, radical for his time for sure.
Oh, big time for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Then in 1861,
old Abe comes knocking on the door. And when old Abe comes knocking, man, you answer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And because he started the Republican Party there in Kentucky, and he was actually a candidate for vice president with Lincoln. And he loses out that bid there, but Lincoln takes, politics, man. You take care of those, take care of you. And he gives him a really, really rough job, a really horrible job, didn't he?
Well, I mean, he's the minister of Russia.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was code then, just like it is code now in Russia. So
Well, I mean, during that time, I mean, it would have been he'd been dealing with nobility, aristocracy, and things like that.
Yeah.
Living kind of a cush job in Russia, gets sent to Russia.
Yeah.
We can call that an ambassador to Russia today.
Ambassador, yeah.
But he offered. Clay didn't get to Russia very long, but he offers Clay a position. Gives him to be a major general.
Oh, if you're talking about
In the Civil War.
In the Civil War, yeah. But he says he would only do it if Lincoln frees the slaves.
What kind of leverage is that, man? I tell you what, I will take your 2-star general position if you free the slaves. Now that's some background negotiation, right?
Yeah. Well, how do you?
This guy's got some serious spine, man.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'll take your big, huge promotion, Lincoln, if you did this little thing for me.
Yeah. Well, guess what happened? So Lincoln sends Clay to Kentucky to see kind of how things might go over. Then Lincoln issues the proclamation or the Emancipation Proclamation, and Clay takes the promotion.
It's all I think that's amazing. That's some serious brass, kind of thing. I'm only going to take this wonderful thing you've given me if you do this massive thing, and he did.
Yeah. But it might have been one of those things that Clay. Well, here this is all speculation, of course, because a few months later, Clay resigns and he goes back to Russia.
Right. So, he's like, the heck with this, man. I think he really didn't want the promotion.
That's what I was about to say. This is speculation, but very well could have been. He was like, you know what? I don't really want this, but I'm gonna ask for the most outlandish thing, and the one thing that I would want, and he won't do it, and then he does it, and Clay's like, I gotta keep my word. I gotta keep my word, and he's like, all right, I'll take the promotion.
Yeah, it's really awesome. So
yeah,
it really is. Oh, one thing, I'm glad she brought that up. Patty says Wikipedia has a great picture of Clay's battalion in front of the White House. We forgot to mention that right when South Carolina. Yeah. Are you there? You froze up. Looked like you had narcolepsy or something, right? It's getting a little past your bedtime. But Clay, right at the beginning of the Civil War, there wasn't any troops there in Washington, and Clay rose up about 300 men that protected the White House and protected the naval yard there in Washington. So I called Clay's battalion there. So he, so that was something that was right before he went to Russia there that I forgot to bring up. So, but really neat stuff. So he gets his promotion. So now he can always be called General Clay and goes back to Russia again.
Yep. And while he was there, he did help in other ways. He brought the Russian aid to the U.S. and he was able to, I guess you'd say, leverage or negotiate, however you want to say it. But Russia threatened Britain and France, saying that if they acknowledged the Confederacy or with war, they threatened them with war. That if they acknowledged the Confederacy, they would have war. So
that's a big deal. I mean, Russia was one of the big powers at the time, even then, and saying, hey, guys, because there's a whole lot of we know the Brits and the French were aiding the Confederacy there for a short time. And basically they cut that off. And the Russians actually, he sent his, the Tsar there sent his fleet to the western shore. And I know that the Russians rolled right up in New York Harbor right there to show some might right there. So that's pretty cool. And then he was helping and instrumental with old Seward and his big purchase that he made.
Why did you say old who?
Old Seward's Folly there, that big cold place up there that we purchased for pennies.
Yes, Alaska. Thank goodness. for Alaska.
Right.
Yeah.
Here we go. We're talking about this old boy from Madison County,
I mean,
helping
man,
out the purchase of Alaska and
doing big
freeing all
things,
the
man.
slaves. Big things. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, when he returned, upon returning, he left the Republican Party for a bit, because they were being too soft on the Reconstruction. So.
Yeah, isn't that wild? Felt they were being too soft on the South, and he actually supported Democratic candidates there for a short time, and even ran on like an independent ticket at one time too.
Yeah,
but eventually came back to the Republican Party.
Yep. On a negative note,
the rest of this might be a little negative.
Yeah. We're gonna be a little murky here. So in 1878, he was 68 years old.
68 years old.
Yeah, he'd been married for 45 years, but he divorces his wife for abandonment.
She abandoned him. She took off on him.
Why would
she? Right?
Why would she do that? Well, she could no longer tolerate his infidelity. So
after 45 years, I can't deal with this no more.
Yep. Yeah. Which we talked earlier, Yeah. So yeah, that happened. Yeah. So
he finally left him, and he divorces his wife. 68 years old.
Yep. But it gets a little darker, a little worse here.
Yeah, later on, he starts to lose his mind.
Yeah.
We would think probably what he had dementia.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But they don't know what's going on with him. He starts to get paranoid. He keeps 2 pistols and a rifle in his bed with him at all times. He's got people that his servants and stuff like that are taking care of him. But
Michael says he was loyal to everyone. All right. Anyway.
Yeah. All right.
In 1894, he was 84 years old.
84 years old.
And he married a 15-year-old
15.
named Dora Richardson, who was the sister of one of his tenants.
Yeah. I think Dora might have worked in his kitchen or something like that for a little bit. He's 84 years old and marries a 15-year-old.
Yeah,
right? And not even not even like people married in their class systems there. Here he was, this larger than life character, and he marries a 15-year-old girl that's working in the house.
Yeah. And as in in even modern times, if when somebody gets a divorce and they remarry, the kids might not like it. Well, his kids try to stop this as well. The town folk tried to come and rescue her.
Yes.
But he shot a cannon at them.
Yeah, from the top. He had put remember those cannons we were talking about?
Yeah.
He put it at the top of his house there, Whitehall, and fired them at the time. You imagine the town coming to pitchforks, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You're going to rescue this Dora, poor little Dora, 15-year-old girl, this weirdo, that wants to marry her. And he shoots a cannon at her, man. I mean, this guy's something else. He has his own line of bourbon whiskey. Have you seen it?
Really? What's
Cassius Clay? Yeah.
Is it called Cassius Clay?
Yeah, called Cassius Clay.
Okay.
I wouldn't know anybody that has it, but it has the topper on there has a cannon. Pretty cool.
So,
yeah, pretty cool.
So she does try to run away actually several times.
He sent her to boarding school.
Yeah.
He sent his wife to boarding school. How do you have to get an education?
Yeah. And so she tries to run away quite a few times. After a while, though, he does bring her back, and after 4 years, he divorces her. But which is probably a good thing. Probably a good thing that happened. She did marry. She married a local, who ran a newspaper called A Worthless Mountaineer.
Worthless mountaineer. Yeah. That's pretty bad, man. That'll do something for your ego, won't it? When the newspaper,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just a regular dude, but I'm a worthless mountaineer. So,
Yeah. But he was actually killed in a railroad accident as well. So,
and then Cassius
tried to get her back.
Tries to get her back again. I mean, this guy's lost his daggone mind.
Yes, and he calls her his peasant wife. He tries to get his peasant wife back.
I'm sure that your wife would appreciate that if you call
I don't think so. No. No.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So it was a kind of crazy that was allowed. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty bad stain on his reputation, or his looking back at him. But for all the good that he did.
I mean, Melissa Smith's laughing there. So, but it. I mean, the guy obviously, when you really study about him, he has.
Yeah.
Well, I would say he would have dementia. I mean,
there's been quite a few books written about him that, I mean, he definitely kind of lost it. I mean, he basically was insane there for the last little bit of his life. And, over the times he'd been threatened a lot as well. You can kind of understand why he might have been so, just crazy.
He lived paranoid and he lived rough.
Yeah.
I mean, he lived. Yeah. He had to do some things that he felt guilty for, and later on in his life, and he started to think about those types of things. And a lot of people believe that he's still there at his house there in Whitehall. That he's never left, and that his spirit is there, and he's tormented, and he haunts the place. There's 1,000,001 stories about that. That's why I said that Whitehall was known. One of their biggest draws is, the haunted part of that. They're saying a lot of. Maybe the previous slaves are still haunting the area of his father and many other people and things too. So Lillian says, hello guys from Logan County, West by God. My parents live in Logan right now, actually, but so pretty cool.
He dies on July 22nd, 1903. He was 92. He died at Whitehall. When he died, the crowd was or his funeral, the crowd was racially mixed. So
he said there was just as many black folks there as there was white folks. I mean, this person that has such a big influential thing, and it's really interesting though that he hadn't been influential for 20-25 years or so. He lived his last quarter of a century as a crazy man there in the house, his mansion, kind of thing. But it was interesting that there was so many black folks that came out to see him because they gave him a nickname, didn't they?
Yes, yeah. Abe Lincoln, the Abe Lincoln of Kentucky. So
that's a pretty powerful name, isn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Definitely. I mean, there's one other thing that I think we forgot. So one time he was giving a speech. And when he began his speech, he held up the Bible and said, I'm going to be speaking the truth, the whole truth, and I'm speaking from this. He laid down the Bible and he said, if you believe the Bible, you're going to know that what I'm speaking is the truth. And he laid down the Bible, and then he said, for everybody else, he pulled out his pistol and laid it on the podium. So,
all right, there you go. I think my dad's a pastor. I need to. That's a great illustration.
Yeah,
you're gonna repent or. That's a heck of an altar call, man.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, but
that's a great story.
But he does. I mean, in a way, his legacy did live on in Kentucky for a while. How's that? But we began with this.
Yeah. Well, just 9 years later, and I think that's important, is just 9 years after his death, a man is born named in Louisville named Cassius Clay Sr. And of course, his dad or his son was Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. who was Muhammad Ali.
There you go.
So we think of Muhammad Ali being, kind of modern. We think of this Cassius Clay guy being way back, but it was only a 9-year gap from the death of Cassius Clay to the birth of Cassius Clay Sr. So they do come pretty close together. The time lapse there. So
yeah. And Patty said she finds it interesting that he actually changed his name to Muhammad Ali, and which, I mean, I think he did that when he converted to Islam. I think is when he changed his name. So
Sheila Boyd Markham says, "Is there a connection?" I don't think so, except the fact that they were black folks living in Louisville that had heard and knew the story of Cassius Clay, and he was a hero, and for the emancipation of the slaves. So
I mean, and oftentimes, for hundreds of years, that's who people name their kids after, famous, people from the area. You got, I mean, goodness sakes, loads of George Washington Smiths and George Washington Thomases, and everybody named their kid George Washington for a while there.
So your dad named you Jameson. What's the
no
connection there? So when I think of Jameson, I think of there's only one thing that I can think of. But
no, just so I was actually named. My mom watched a soap opera back when she was younger, and one of the actors on that soap opera's name was Jameson. So that's where she got it.
Okay.
Not the booze.
Not the booze. Got it. So good deal. Well, Cassius Clay, man, what a unique fellow he is. Love him or hate him,
Yeah.
Because there is no middle ground when it comes to that guy. You're on one side of the fence or the other.
Yep. Really a radical man, a radical for his time. He did a lot of good stuff.
If you were on the fence, he would knock you off of it one way or the other.
Yeah, definitely a Kentuckian everybody needs to know about. So
yeah, man. Yeah. All right, well, that sums that up. Who we got next week?
I don't know. I didn't look at the schedule.
Yeah, we did just make a new schedule. I'm real excited about it. We got some big names and some obscure names on there. Some really good stuff. Like Battle Blue Licks is on there coming up. So
big things. We got some last comments. Patty said, "Thanks, guys." Hey, well, thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. My daughter did a report about him.
The DNA report matches him.
Yeah. Oh, DNA. Oh, okay.
And Margie Ball Miles says, "I believe Cassius Clay Jr. had a connection to the Whitehall slaves." Sorry, don't remember the specifics. It's been years since I read the book. I've wondered that too. If there was any connection there to the Clays, kind of thing. That would be a neat. That'd be a neat thing to know. I'd like to know that.
That'd be cool. Yep.
But,
all right.
Sheila says that she read that Clay freed his slaves even before it became a law. Absolutely, he did. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. You better, because he inherited all the slaves of his dad. Inherited the household and things like that. Richard Perkins says, "Thanks, guys, for all the history. Grew up about a mile from there. So awesome.
Yeah,
that's a really cool place to be. I had planned to be there today, but didn't work out there. But we're going to go back. So, anything else you want to say about old Cassius?
Not much, man. I think we covered it pretty well. So
yeah, man, good deal. Yeah. We'll head off for now, guys, and thanks for watching. And hey, remember, family tree nuts. Let our nuts find the nuts in your family tree.
Horace Holly was born February 13, 1781, to Luther and Sarah Dankin Holly. In his youth, Holly was encouraged and influenced by his parents to pursue knowledge. His parents, seeing his natural intelligence, provided him with an education at Williamstown Academy in Massachusetts and at Yale College. His father was a Calvinist and his mother was Baptist, but neither parent pushed a certain denomination during his youth. Holly studied divinity under Timothy Dwight, which gave him his orthodox Calvinist views. He was married in 1805 to Mary Austin, and they had 2 children. He became pastor of the Congregational Church in Greenfield, in Connecticut. His views became more liberal. He became a Unitarian, and at the Hollis Street Church, his leadership doubled his congregation to the point they had to build a larger church. He was also a member of the Boston School Committee and the Harvard Board of Overseers. Throughout these years, he was gaining more and more notoriety. Holly's career made its connection to Kentucky in 1815, when he was offered to become the president of Transylvania University, but he declined. The board persisted, and in 1818 he visited Lexington. During his visit, he was persuaded by Henry Clay to take the position as president. His goal was to make Transylvania a leading Western university. During his time as president, the school expanded. He was able to attract some of the finest teachers in liberal arts, law, and medicinal. Those teachers included naturalist Constantine Rafinesque, surgeon Daniel Drake, Benjamin Caldwell, and William Short, and 2 lawyers, Jesse Bledsoe and William T. Barry. The medical school became a top school in the country, on par with Harvard and Pennsylvania. Working with legislatures, Holly was able to purchase a medical library from Europe and scientific equipment. Students from the South and the West chose to attend Transylvania over schools in the East. In 1825, Marquis de Lafayette went on a tour of Kentucky, and when he came to Lexington, he was greeted by Holly. Holly's dream was fulfilled, and during his tenure from 1818 to 1825, the school grew and expanded. However, it came to an end. Many factors forced Holly out of the school. The school had been run primarily by Presbyterians, and with Holly's unorthodox religious views, the pressure from Presbyterians continued to increase. Most importantly, Joseph Deshaies, the current governor, did not approve of Horace Holly, mainly because Deshaies was a Jacksonian, and he had a disdain for Henry Clay, who was a big supporter of the school and Holly. Deshaies convinced the Kentucky legislature to stop funding the school. Holly, seeing that he could no longer run the school in such a situation, resigned in 1825. After his resignation, he left Lexington and moved to New Orleans to begin new education projects. In the summer of 1827, he was traveling back to Boston to escape the Louisiana heat. He contracted yellow fever and died on July 31st. He was buried at sea near Dry Tortugas. I hope you enjoyed learning about Horace Holly. Even though his time in Kentucky was brief, his actions set up one of Kentucky's most known institutions. He was a man known for his intelligence and a man who fought to provide others with the means to grow their own intelligence. Don't forget to try out audibletrial.com/KYHistoryPod to get a free book of your choosing. Like, subscribe, and share this video in the Kentucky History channel for more Kentucky history content. If you feel like it, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/KYHistoryPod and find us on Twitter and Facebook at KYHistoryPod. And don't forget to check out the Land Between the Meadows Kentucky History Podcast for more in-depth history of Kentucky. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.